I remember the first meeting I had with Fonzie, I said, look, I know I'm going to fall in love with you guys. Stop being a Euro snob because we got to say Ali Ahmed and Matthew. No, Matthew left
I know, genuinely,
and Shaf.
I want to ask you about one of your biggest selection headaches, Jesse, probably the goalkeeper position.
It was a good thing that I have had a lot of jobs.
In the next few months then, you've got Nations League and you've got Gold Cup in the next 6-8 months. Do you feel like you have to win one of those?
Without insulting them, I said from the beginning, I'm like, look, when I watch you guys play with your club teams and when I watch you guys overall carefully, too many of you play like little kids. It doesn't help if Jonathan goes to wherever Man U and doesn't play.
Yeah.
Like I think in Glasgow that day there was probably like 5 million gallons of beer drunken.
That's every weekend.
Jesse, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to be in your company and it's a pleasure to be having this opportunity to speak to you. How's life? How's life right now for you?
Good, good. We've had this week in Toronto here with kind of a modified group of some guys that have been out of the MLS playoffs and then some newer, younger players to kind of integrate and see where their levels are at. But it's been good, and I like being around Toronto and in the community and meeting people, seeing people, and there's a lot of energy, I think, around the team right at this moment, so it's exciting.
Yeah, it's good. We saw you sat outside on the curb as you were coming into there, you're taking calls, so like you can do that in a city like this, can't you? It's quite nice.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, if I wear some Canadian gear, then people kind of will see, oh, okay, there's the coach, and they'll come and say hi, and people are really positive. I'm really excited about the team, and otherwise, you can walk around and be anonymous and have a coffee and
But harder to do that in Leeds City Centre, I guess, Jesse.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, there's different places that you go in this business, in this world, where sometimes everyone knows who you are and sometimes a few and sometimes no one. People are always nice. I've never, even in Leeds where there were varying degrees of opinions of the work that I did, people were always kind and nice and excited to say hello. So it's good.
That's good you brought up Leeds. Yeah. That's your club as well, Steve,
yeah,
isn't it?
Crazy place to play. I played there for 13 games on loan. Intense.
Longest 13 games of your life.
Yeah, unfortunately ended in relegation as well, so it was a tough time, but a brilliant place to play. When things are going well, it's what that stadium can get like. Ellen Road's rocking when the team's winning.
We had some amazing experiences. We won some matches late when we played there, and I think that feeling in that stadium because there's a lot of anxiousness. I think that I learned this when I first came, and I learned it more as I went on, but the fan base is almost waiting to fail, which is a little bit of, I think, the challenge there is to have everybody overcome this doomsday attitude and change the mindset that no, we can be successful. And that's the way I think is positivity and relentless positivity to always go after things and never stop, So, and that part, if we talk about then what that means here in Canada, I think we have a good young group that is very optimistic and very positive about their potential.
Yeah, well, that's been the hallmark of your career. Nobody can argue that you've been a positive coach everywhere you've been, Jesse, but we'll get to that more in a minute. Maybe we'll start talking about your spell with Canada so far and go back to being offered that role, I think it was middle of May, and having, 20-something days before you're heading into a run of games against the Netherlands, France, and a Copa America challenge that was unique for Canada. What was your thinking then? I know you're going to say excitement, but was there a little bit of trepidation there maybe in some way?
Well, I was just, when I wrapped my mind around, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Then I obviously knew the schedule, and I knew that the schedule would be challenging, but I also knew it would create real urgency in the project. I knew that every guy would have to be really ready for every moment, and that this is the way I think anyways, is the way that you train and the way that you work is about going after it every day, maximizing potential, pushing yourself physically, mentally. And so I knew that we were going to have to do that the right way. I started meeting with the players and talking with a lot of them, and I could feel their goodness, and look, I knew this, and I'm sure you guys, being in Canada now for some time, this is a great quality of Canadianness, is I think there's kindness, there's generosity, there's genuineness, and certainly I could feel that. And then, I was also trying to feel out which players to bring in. Do I bring in some of the older players still? Do I start over with a fresher, newer group? How do I build everything from step one? And I was able through a lot of the conversations to, I think, get my finger on the pulse of where the group was at, what was going to be necessary, and then how to start the process. From day one, of us all getting together, you could sense positive energy and you could sense excitement. You know, that has helped us, I think.
How did you start the process then? I'm trying to think. You probably had 3 days in the training field,
Yeah.
probably prior to that Haaland game.
Yeah.
So how did you start the process? What was you thinking going into those two big games?
You know, I was actually, it was a good thing that I have had a lot of jobs.
Experience, can't beat it.
Because I had kind of had experiences of taking over teams and then kind of knowing how to step by step create a process. So, you know, I mean, we had a meeting together and we talked about how we were going to work. And then I kind of started to break down like in 2 phases of the game, like one defensively and one attacking wise. Okay, this is some vocabulary. These are some concepts. These are some principles. Here are some tactics. Here's how we're going to work through this. You know, training sessions where I was tried to be very specific and very clear about, okay, what we wanted to look like and how we were going to try to play, and step by step what was going to be important. Almost like building blocks, you know? And they took on a lot of the information quickly. And then even the way they trained, I could see that they were grasping things. And so I remember I was walking off the pitch on the second day with Ewan, Morrow, and Pierre. And I said to them, look, guys, we're probably in for a tough next month. You know, if you looked at it, it was not just Holland and France and Argentina, but then Peru, Chile. And then if you just said, okay, maybe we don't get out of the group, then it was US, Mexico.
Yeah.
Right? So the first 7 games were incredibly daunting. So I said, look, we might be in for a tough next month, but I'm certain that this team will be very good in 2 years. You know, that has proven to be a good initial feeling that I had. And the players and their ability to adapt and learn and push allowed us to accelerate things even beyond what my expectations were. So yeah, that part's been pretty awesome.
I want to ask you more about that, Jesse, because Kevin and I have had experiences coaching, and you've got way more experience. You've been head coach in Europe and MLS, now a national team. You always want to give all the information to a player. You know, the temptation is to overload a player. How do you balance that? How do you kind of learn when, especially when in a new job and you've got tough run of games, how do you balance coaching these guys and giving them bits that's going to improve the team, improve individuals?
Yeah, I mean, look, so, you know, in that first process too was also like trying to identify exactly which players I thought could fit into the team in the way that I wanted to try to transform them in terms of a playing style. So that was important, identifying that. The more experience I've gotten as a coach, of course, I'm on top of the details and I put a process in place, but I know that they ingest it, you know, sometimes at their own rate, and then we have to always figure out how to accelerate learning curves, but you have to sort of surrender yourself to the process and know that sometimes doing more is doing less, and you have to find a way to be very precise with communication, very precise with teaching, and then you have to almost allow the environment to breathe in the right way, and you have to know how to inject yourself at the right time, how to let things go at the right time, how to trust that they're grasping what they need to, how to show them trust that they can also insert themselves and work with each other and push each other. And so that's the beauty, I think, of leadership and that side of coaching is like this feel and understanding of what buttons to push at what time and how to understand the personalities in the group and which guys need to be pushed, which guys need to be sort of released. And look, they from the beginning were excited to have me. You know, they made it clear, the leaders in the team made it clear to me that they absolutely thought I was the right guy. They knew my history, they knew my playing style, they knew my, you know, at least from afar, who I am and what things I emphasize, and they were excited to go for it with me. And I was careful about choosing my next job, and I was careful in terms of making sure that whatever I did next, I was going to do it and I needed to love it. And I told them early on, like I remember the first meeting I had with Fonzie, I said, look, I know I'm going to fall in love with you guys. And the hardest part will be like saying goodbye to you after these little stretches, which you know from being around the national team as well. But I was really shocked at how quickly I fell in love with them, right? Like they're really great young men, high character, really committed to the national team, really committed to each other, really fun to be around, youthful, energetic. In all those ways, I think us coming together meant that we were able to create an accelerated process.
Was that just largely down, you had so much time on your hands between that first game and then into Copa. I probably kind of know the answer to it. Yes, I'm sure that helped you so much that you had that amount of time with them. But going into that Argentina game, you come off the back of a magnificent result. It's still then a competitive game. Yeah. So how did they adjust then to that immediate feeling of, look, we're in the real business end of the game?
You know, once I could see that they were smart and understood what we were trying to do, without insulting them, I said from the beginning, I'm like, look, when I watch you guys play with your club teams and when I watch you guys overall carefully, too many of you play like little kids. We need to be more mature. We need to be understand what high-level football is. We need to commit to the way we train, to how we sprint in matches, how we run, how we compete, how physical we are, how aggressive we are. We need to stop playing safe when we have the ball, and too many guys pass backwards and pass sideways and weren't inserting themselves in the game at a high level. And then when we first got together down in Copa, it was really hot in Atlanta, and we ran out of them. And I was like, look, to play this way, we have to be fit, we have to be strong.
That's unusual for international teams. We've all been around international sides, and that's unusual for a coach to do that.
Yeah, but if you want to be in tournament play, and look, this is one of the things that Pierre Berrieux is very good at. He coached the U.S. In the World Cup in 2002, 2006, 2010, and there's data about how strong the U.S. was from a physical perspective in those matches, in those tournaments. And so we know this. And by the way I play, I want our team to be able to run and be aggressive and be fit. And so I made it clear to them, and I made it clear to them how important it was. And then we created 2 very hard days in incredible heat and humidity down in Atlanta of fitness, and they still joke about it.
Was that a test for you?
Well,
what did you think when
it wasn't a test, it was a demand.
Yeah.
It was a demand. For me, coaching is of course there are leadership principles and there are mentality, but for me, from where I sit as a coach in high-level football and about excellence and high-level performance, this is about creating very, very high demands for the players and very high standards. And I've said to them often that they're so great together. They love playing with the national team. They're to get this brotherhood and togetherness that you guys worked through a lot. They're fully committed to all this. And I said, look, from a mentality and togetherness perspective, there's not much more I can do with you guys. You guys are already operating at a very high level in terms of what you mean to each other. I said, but the way I can impact you is the standards and demands of the kind of football and the kind of individual athletes that you are and need to become. That's really what this has been, as a relentlessness to demand and to get more out of them.
You can clearly see the relentlessness, the desire that they've shown. Are you actually saying that to them? You play like kids. You play like kids. Are you saying that to the team? How do they take that? And why is that? Why do you think they're actually performing like that then?
The scenario I told them is I was like, look, as I was getting to know all you guys, I would look and I'd go, okay, wow, there's some potential there in that player. How old is he? 19, 20, 21, 26? 26. Plays like a 19-year-old. The next one, 25, plays like he's 20. And so I don't know. I think I say this, like, when people watch football, okay, and they watch Man City, what catches people's eye is the elegance at which Man City plays, right? But not the aggressiveness, not the intensity, not the sprinting, not the physicality. They don't pick up on that as much. And I get it, because a lot of times when when you watch it on TV and you're trying to analyze tactics, and whether it's from a high-level football perspective or just a fan perspective, when you're not close to the pitch and you don't really see the physicality and what the games really require, then you don't really understand what that is, right? And so I've been lucky enough to be around the game at high levels, whether it's been in the Bundesliga, the Champions League, obviously Premier League, and what separates teams and players is not just their technical skill. It's the speed and power at which the game is played and that the best players can play at. And they can, at fast paces, slow the game down where they make it look really easy, but it's because they've adapted their speed of play and their concept of physicality and their thought process of how quickly they can process information on the pitch. And that comes from an intensity of the way they train and what games look like and what games feel like. And so how do you translate that to players and to teams and to coaches? Well, the first part is that training can never be comfortable for me, right? Like, training has to always have incredible intensity, and it has to be chaotic at times, and you have to always, as a coach, dial things up so that players are always feeling like things are happening too fast. And what happens is they learn to adapt and process information, and they learn that if the ball comes, they better already have an idea of what they need to do next and where they want the ball to go and where their teammates are and where the opponents are. And it's adaptation of technique, it's adaptation of tactics, it's adaptation of speed of thought, speed of play. And that's how you see development, right? Not by a passing exercise of what their first touch looks like without pressure and how they're able to deliver a 15-yard pass to the next player with no real conception of how it fits within the game. right? So that's what I try to do with how I train, how I prepare my teams.
Given your experience then of coaching in so many different countries, what do you think is then, or is there a difference between a North American player and players from the rest of the world? The way that they adapt and the way that they actually go about their daily business?
Maybe. I don't know if you could say it that simply. You see a difference in the types of pressures that players have been put under. And by pressures, I don't mean like, do you have to win? Do you have to lose? I mean, like, in terms of their overall development process of how they think about the game and how they play within the game, the pressures and the intensity at what they've been exposed to, right? And then, of course, there's also then, when you play for a club and then like your expectations are to win and your expectations are to develop. And if you come from a family that doesn't have as much resources to provide, then it means a lot that as a 12 and 13-year-old, there's a lot of pressure for you to figure out how to provide for your family. And there are these added things that mean something as well. You can't manufacture those by driving a kid through the suburbs and dropping him off at training and then having a nice training session and then, splitting up and playing, passing exercise. That none of those things really prepare those kids. So is that North American? Is that high level football versus, less high level football? Whatever it is, my job as a coach, and even when I'm talking to people in the coaching community here in Canada, is to try to, without saying, you're not doing that good enough and you need to do this more and I have all the answers and I know how to do things. It's just to provide a little bit of insight as to what I've seen, what I've learned, and to give examples and to show a little bit why I do the things the ways that I do them, and that if people see value in it and it can help them with their teams and with their players, then that's a good thing. And if they think they want to go a different route, then they're able to do that too. But I have taken on some responsibility in the coaching community in Canada to say, look, this is what I've seen, and from that, this is what I do, and this is how I find it benefits players.
So how do we change that in North America, Jesse? I know it's a big question. We could probably have an hour or two on that very one subject, but how do we change that intensity? How do we get our young players ready for the highest levels of the game?
Once you can start to develop some of the building blocks, but then test the level at which they're able to put those to practice, that's how you see their brains start to grow. Like, people say, okay, so what do you do differently with a 12-year-old team than you would do with your professional team? And the answer is not that much. There's little tweaks that you have to use to adapt the level of what players are, but in terms of like really creating fast, demanding training, in some ways you see 12-year-olds adapt better than you do professionals, right? Because they're in their learning phase of their life. When it just comes to the methodology of training players and helping them develop, that's important to me.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember, and I probably think back to my own career as well, that when I was maybe 22, 23, still very young, still very inexperienced, it was almost as if, because I'd been signed for Sunderland into the Premier League, that's it, you're the complete article now, that's it, we don't need to work with you. And I probably needed more coaching at that stage than at any other stage in my career. I probably needed to go on to the next level. Do you find that is probably the biggest change within coaching over the last 20, 25 years? Would you think that?
It's hard for me to say. I would say, based on my time in Red Bull, that because we valued young players and development of young players so much, it was a built-in understanding that we had to invest completely into training and into the player and holistically how to help them understand how to be at their best. But the more that I developed that with young players, the more I felt like it applied to everyone. And sometimes some of the Germans that I would meet in Red Bull, they would say, well, young players are easier because they're eager to learn, they're eager to please, and old players are sometimes built with more negative experiences and things that think they value. And I said, okay, but what does that mean for us as coaches then? Are we like, what's the difference between a young coach and an old coach? And if we're an old coach, are we done learning? And that's a sad statement to me. Right? So my thing was like, the difference, one of the big differences between national team and club is in club, you can really recruit to find players that meet specifically what you need in your team, right? In country, you have to like take what you have a little bit and then push it and see, and then sometimes be a little bit more pragmatic. But I found with this group that they're just as eager and capable of adapting as any group I've worked with. For me, the techniques of helping people learn to grow in terms of the idea of how to become better footballers, specifically in the system that I like to create, it's what drives me more than anything. I mean, of course, game day, we all want to win. But what really drives me are the relationships, the desire, and the the pursuit of excellence. That's more than anything of this job, that's what drives me, is the people and maximizing their potential.
I think when I was 29 years old, I joined Wigan with Roberto Martinez. And, you know, you could say at 29, you're coming to the end of your career, you're certainly in the latter stages. And he changed the way that I thought about football, to the point that you're saying, that the way his methodology and the way that he liked the game to be played actually made me think, you know, at home and in training and in the conversations I had with him, that this game can be played different, can be thought of differently. I think that's what you're saying there. You want to have that impact on players, but it's more in the person and the emotional side of figuring out what that personality is in that player, whether he's 35 or 19, that you look for,
Yeah, I mean, look, I gave a presentation to coaches yesterday. And it was 2 hours of me talking about tactics and what we do in training. And at the end of it, they can see how excited I am about, but really the football for me is just a platform. And I told them that, like, as passionate as I am about the tactics and the football and the style of play and the details of that, that's just the platform to insert the individuals and the people into it. And that's where I think you really see personal development, when they know that you're investing in them not just as footballers, but as people. And, I've been lucky to work with some really high level players, and I still keep in touch with all of them, and I still am their biggest fans and sending them texts and cheering them on. And it's one of the beauties of being with the national team, is because you kind of are you're the fans of all these guys when they go with their clubs. And when you see them play well, with Steph Eustáquio scored a goal last night in Europa League, you're like, awesome goal. It's amazing. You love it.
Let's talk about some of your people. Sorry,
that's what I just know exactly where he was taking us there as well.
I think we'll start with David, Jonathan David. Obviously, he's catching everybody's imagination right now with his goals against some of the biggest clubs in the world. What have you found working with him? What do you think his level can be, and where would you like to see him maybe land next summer, assuming he leaves Lille?
Well, start there. I've had a lot of guys have made transfers to different clubs, and a lot of them have called me and said, what do you think? And I can, because of being around European football now and knowing people, and I can say, look, this is what I know about this club, this is what I know about this club, this is what I know about the people there, this is maybe what it would be like for you. But in the end, it's their decision. I've heard even American national team coaches say players have to play in Europe, and this is not, what's important for me is that players are environments where they're challenged, but where they're also able to play and where they're able to put to practice still some of the things that I'm pushing out with them, because what I've said to them is the things that I'm telling you are not just vital to what we do here, but are important for high level football. And I'm challenging them to apply some of the lessons they've learned with me, even with their club team, and that I've told them they can't just do it here and be good at it. They have to be able to do both, even though their clubs may ask different things. Mm-hmm. So let's start with Jonathan. Where should he go next? I don't know. That's for him to decide and his family.
What do you expect?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't even asked him.
You must have an idea what kind of league you think you might excel in.
Look, I've had other people, I have other people that I know from other clubs that reach out to me about him or Fonzie or this player or that player. And I just say, look, here's what it's like. Here's how great they are. Here's how they work. Here's what their potential is. And I want every opportunity for the best opportunity. But it doesn't help if Jonathan goes to wherever Man U and doesn't play. That just doesn't help him. That doesn't help us, right? So I want them to be challenged, but I want them to be rewarded. And that's in the end what matters most. Jonathan is a very special personality, right? And partly because he's a very, very intelligent person. I say he's the most intelligent football player I've ever coached. His ability to take information and apply it and understand exactly why we're doing something, what the expectations are for him and his role, and how to execute it and how to put it to practice are better than any player I've ever worked with. So, of course, we all see the highlights and the goals, but there is so much more underneath why he is so good. And by the way, most of his goals aren't about he's bigger, faster, and stronger, or more technically gifted. It's that he's a faster thinker than almost everybody on the pitch at every moment that he plays. That is a special quality that's not so easy to teach. And for me, as I've gotten to know him, he knows, I've made it clear to him that I know how smart he is. And I've made it clear to him as well that because of that, then the expectations are that he can, be always at the forefront of understanding what we're trying to do tactically. He can be sometimes a point man for how we press, what we do in build-up phase. That's why I haven't just used him as a lone striker, because he's too valuable with all the qualities that he brings. He's too valuable to the team at all moments to just stand up high and wait to score goals. We need him to be a big part of everything we do. And he loves it. And he knows that I see that in him, and he appreciates that I see that. He appreciates that I know how smart he is. But he's really fun. Because of that, he's really fun to work with.
If we go back a year, 18 months, Stevie, Jesse, at this stage now, we were probably talking about Canada's key results had to come down to Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies, maybe Stefan Eustáquio. Probably 3 we would highlight as real playing in top leagues, top class football. Now all of a sudden, with the emergence of Bombito, with the emergence of Derek Cornelius, Ismail Kone, now we've got 6 or 7. Alistair Johnston, sorry, I don't want to leave Alistair Johnston who plays for my team, so I've got to give Alistair Johnston. But I mean, you're looking at 7, 8. That's quite unusual really within international football, I think, unless you're France and Spain or whoever.
Stop being a Euro snob, because we've got to say Ali Ahmed and Matthew. Matthew left
genuinely,
and Schaff, and that's why I
down.
say, like, the MLS guys are also
I was actually
developing
honest to God, I was going to come to that about the next part of that development with those guys anyway. Yeah, you can kill me, you can put me to bed, it's all right.
The point is that these guys, they've had really good starting points, right? They're mature people. They want the best for themselves and their careers and their families. And they have raw abilities, right? And it's been just about trying to, again, help them mature, help them understand how to be more disciplined, help them how to be more focused. Along with that, about saying they looked too young, I said too many of you, maybe all of you, okay? Even Fonzie and Jonathan included. You do this because you love to play football and you're good at it. And not enough a real discipline and concentration and focus to be the absolute best footballer you can be. And that has to shift. You have to get in the gym more, you have to eat better, you have to sleep better, you have to understand that the best players in the world, it's not an accident, And then I've given them individual plans, and I've been very direct with all of them that this is not about things you're doing well and things you're good at. There's plenty of that to be talked about. It's about what needs to be better and how you need to grow and what you need to do more and how you need to push. And that investment that you make in yourself and in your career on a daily basis.
In terms of what? What would you
Getting in the gym, analyzing the way they play. Again, their discipline and commitment to lead a lifestyle that gets the most out of themselves, that they're fitter, that they're stronger, that they play braver, that they're more aggressive on the pitch, that they sprint more, that they win more duels, that they're physical, in every way.
Yeah.
In every way, they have to crank it up. It can't just be that, you play because you're good at it. It's not good enough. And by the way, they are into it. They get it, right? And they're excited, I think, to be challenged in that way. And they know that I'm doing it not to insult them and not to challenge their being, but to say to them, look, you have an incredible opportunity. Really, because so many of them do. And you have a small window in your life where you have the chance to really maximize everything that you can be, And why not? Why not be obsessed with excellence? Why not be obsessed with the opportunity that lies before you? And by the way, we have this carrot of 2026. And so if they can combine that with what their goals are in their professional life, along with the opportunity that lies in front of them with the World Cup, they are at a moment where they can capture everything. And by the time they're born, by the way they play, who they are, they have an opportunity in front of them, and they have to seize it.
Do you think then the opportunity, I know in the next few months then you've got Nations League and you've got Gold Cup in the next 6-8 months. Do you feel like you have to win one of those tournaments? Because
we want to win. We want to win both.
You're the best team in CONCACAF. That's
no, I mean, I don't think we're caught. There's some dialogue out there now because we've done well in matches and we've done well in Copa America that we're the best team in CONCACAF. To be honest, I don't think we care. Like what we know we have to do is, just because we've done well, it doesn't mean you take your foot off the gas. It actually means it's got to go more to the floor, right? And that's why I say then every time that they do well, I'm like, okay, now the next game has to look like this, or the next day has to look like this, or I don't know. I just don't know any other way to lead a team and to think about seizing our opportunity other than to never stop with the demands. Now, we're going to slip up, right? We're not going to win every game to the World Cup. We're going to have some disappointing results. We're going to have some disappointing performances, but we're going to have to always learn from them. We're going to have to always figure out how to challenge ourselves to get better. And my job is to make sure that I understand why it didn't go well and how to make sure that we're keep pushing and what the next steps are to improve. I'm not afraid of failure. But it has to be rooted in how do we use every day to make sure that we're maximizing potential.
I want to ask you about one of your biggest selection headaches, Jesse, probably the goalkeeper position. Between Max Crepeau, who had an amazing Copa America, and Dayne St. Clair, who's having a wonderful season at Minnesota. Where are you with that? Is that an ongoing battle? Do you see that sort of going week in, week out, or window to window in terms of who will win that spot heading towards 26?
In my coaching career, one of the things I've tried to create internally in the environments that I work in is this idea that, we all make mistakes, we're all up for criticism, we're all up for praise, that like the learning process and development process of individuals and of the team is open. This is not like a closed door, like, oh, I'm going to go have a talk with this guy and I'm a very open communicator and an open leader in that sense. So throughout the process of me getting to know Max and Dayne better and better, I've always had almost at every crossroad where we've had decisions to make about who's playing, spoken with both of them together and said, look, here's where we're at. Like, this is what you're doing well. This is what you're doing well. This is what you need to do better. This is what you need to do better. Here's where we are in decision making. And here's where this process stands. And here's where we think it's going to go from here. And those two have, I think, handled it very maturely, which is what I expect. Like, I expect that if you are an open communicator and you explain pretty clearly to what the thought process is, then it's up to players on how they want to handle it. And I feel like if you show respect and you show belief and you show honesty, that even if you make the wrong decisions, which, by the way, I make tons of wrong decisions every day. But even if you make wrong decisions or you make decisions that they don't agree with, they at least appreciate and understand and respect why and how you made those decisions. So with those two, yeah, I've been very open. And I've told them consistently that they're both very close and that their job is to push each other while within the same time supporting each other. And by the way, you couldn't have asked more for the two.
Does club level come into it all? Because obviously Maxime Crepeau's been dropped. There is a feeling over in Portland that he hasn't necessarily played as well in a Portland jersey as he has in a Canada jersey. And as Stevie said before, Dayne St. Clair, we saw him the other night with the heroics and the penalty shootout and what he's doing. So does club form then come into it, or how loyal can you be to any individual player?
Look, I'm loyal. Just because I select a player in the lineup that doesn't indicate loyalty to me, right? But what I can say is our job as coaches is to create a structure for players to thrive, right? And I'm not being critical of any particular coach or club or whatever, but if a player's thriving with one team and not with the other, then there's some sort of impasse. It's not just the player. Of course, when I watch Portland play, they have a lot of great attacking players and they're exposed a lot defensively, right? And so that's the way they play. And so it means that being the goalkeeper for that team, whether you're James Pantamis or whether you're Max Crepeau, is not easy. Right? And I've talked to Kamal Miller about this as well, like playing, that they give up a lot of goals and they're exposed in a lot of ways, and it's partly the makeup of the way they play and how they do things. So now, can they play better in those situations? Of course they can. They have to. But I think we've created a structure where the players are really clear with how we do things, and there's a lot of support in terms of the tactical nuances so that they're not exposed at the same rates, and they're able to play to their strengths more. In the end, that's our job as coaches, is to put our players on the pitch so they can play to their strengths. Obviously, it's not been easy for Max. He takes responsibility. He's not like blaming anybody. He knows that he's given up too many goals, and he wants to perform better, and he cares about his team's performances. When he's come in with us, he still has had real strong self-belief and confidence, which is why he's had good performances. But obviously, Dayne continues to grow. And I look at Dayne, they're both kind of different personalities. Max is a little bit older, he's a little bit quieter, he's a little bit more stable as a person, he's a little bit more mature. Dayne's, he's got, you see him even when he's making penalty saves. Like, he's got confidence, and I like that in him, But, so for each of them, there's been different messages in terms of how to maximize their potential within what we're doing as a team and what their careers are and where they are in their lives. I've seen a real shift in Dayne as well. I've seen a maturity, I've seen more discipline, I've seen a stronger work ethic, and that has led to, I think, him having better and better performances, which continues to make the competition
Could that be down
closer
to
and closer.
Not being selected? Because I think, you got selected against Holland in your first game, and then obviously you changed it, and Maxime Crepeau was so good against France, it was almost as if you had to play him in the first game against Argentina. But do you feel as though that Dayne St Clair's form has improved to an extent because of a feeling of maybe, I wouldn't want to say rejection, but when you aren't picked, it's rejection essentially, isn't it?
But yeah, you can go. All these things can go either way. And again, that's why I don't over-index. Like, did he respond to this? In the end, it's like when I've been in the process with these players, what has it been like on a daily basis? How do they manage successes, manage failures, manage challenges, manage setbacks, manage triumphs? And do they stay disciplined and focused to try to continue to maximize the best that they can be, right? And that's the demand that I put on them as a group and as individuals. And when I see that happening or not happening, then I either encourage or I start to interject and say, it needs to be more here, it needs to be there. Or as you're doing well, keep thinking about this. And, it's almost never enough. It's always got to be more. Yeah. And that sucks. I'm sorry, but imagine being my child. Like, but this is what life is to me. And in the end, both of these men have risen to the challenge and been rewarded for it in different ways. Obviously, Max through performances with us in the national team, and Dayne with an elevated performance week to week. But I told them when I selected Dayne for the Haaland match that I was selecting Dayne because I thought he was in really good form with his club. And when we were starting the process, that I was making that selection. I knew Max wasn't happy, but I said to him, Max, you've got to deal with it and train well, help me change my mind. And Dayne, you've got to keep going, and I didn't tell them, Max, you're going to be playing against France. I said, this is the decision for this game, and we'll keep the communication open as we go through this.
When you look at the games on a weekend, Jesse, when you're at home around the world and see where your players are, what is your level of concern when your guys are maybe not playing regularly? I'm thinking of some of your, Tajon's coming off a bad leg break, of course, but he's not played a lot of minutes.
He's back.
He's back. So him getting minutes, how essential is that? Steph Eustachio regularly playing every week for Porto. Where are you with that? What can you do about that? I guess not very much.
Like Steph and I during Copa America, we had a very open discussion about the fact that he hasn't been able to play a lot of minutes at Porto. And then what are the strategies, right? And so the strategies are like, you have to fight. You have to fight. You have to go in and show, you've performed well with your national team. I think that your club will always take notice of that, and that you have to go into your club and show how much you want to be there and that you're willing to fight for every day, and with your performances in training, when you get to play in matches, show that you're a good professional and you're ready for everything. He's done that, and now he's played more, right? And he's earned that. And then there's always the discussion in your life and your career. Even when you're playing well, when you're not getting minutes, there's always discussion. Okay, what's best for me right now? Do I resign? Do I stay? Do I look at other suitors? Is there another situation that might be better for me, for my family, financially, professionally? All these things enter into these young men's professional lives so that they can maximize their experiences, their earning potential, what's important for their families, so that they can, use this opportunity in their lives. I like them to play. Yeah. I want them to play, and by the way, I think first because you're truly fans of them. When they're away, you want them to succeed. And obviously, it'll bring confidence and form and everything else, but they're just great lads. You want them to do well for themselves, So again, when I see them score, when I see them playing a lot, I'm always excited. But then, of course, in terms of like our success and our form of our team, it's better if they're playing. It's better if they're getting good minutes and they're performing well and gathering confidence and experiences, no doubt.
Let's talk about another great lad. Kev mentioned earlier his team Celtic, Alistair Johnston, the form he's in. You must be delighted with that, the strides that he's took from Copa America into his season in Scotland with Celtic, and even his performances in the Champions League.
Yeah, look, first Brendan Rodgers, I would describe him as a friend. Right? Like, we've gotten to know each other pretty well. So when I took this job and I started speaking, I went and saw Alistair. I went to their last match when they celebrated them winning the league. So I'm sure were you there?
No.
Okay. No. I think in Glasgow that day there was probably like 5 million gallons of beer drunken.
That's every weekend.
I mean 5 million more, sorry. But, Brendan when I had interacted with him, he had said, look, Alistair's a really important guy in our team, and he's proven to understand exactly who we are, and we think so highly of his potential and leadership. And I was, excited to hear that, because I liked watching Alistair. I, watched him in MLS and then with the national team, and I didn't know him didn't know him personally, but watching him as a player, I always liked him. He had energy, And then getting to know him has been incredible. Like, he has so many great qualities. He's obviously a talker, but he's a thinker too. He's not just somebody who talks for the sake of talking.
I imagine you like a guy that challenges you and wants to discuss things. Yeah.
He's open. That's what is great about him, is you can talk about a lot of different things about what we're trying to do with the team, and he already kind of has a thought process and opinion on those things and how they can help or what it means for him. On the pitch, he's incredibly intelligent, and we've used that intelligence to use him in a flexible way, where sometimes maybe he's like a right back, sometimes he plays in a 3 in the build-up, sometimes he comes inside, sometimes he goes high, and now, especially when you see him how Celtic uses him right now, he's an attacking player for their team.
Like a 10 at times, isn't he?
Inside, scoring goals and getting in the box and doing some really good things for them. So, and now he's also captain a lot of days. So when McGregor comes off the pitch, typically they give the armband to Alistair now. So I think all those things, again, will benefit him with us and his overall confidence and his development as a player. And he's really a special player in person.
You've got 18 months now out from the World Cup, and I mentioned before about is winning one of the next 2 tournaments that you're involved in a realistic goal for you? Is that what you expect of the team? But even going beyond that, how do you feel as though that Canada are going to get themselves in the best position to seriously compete? You spoke about winning the World Cup and things like this. How are you preparing for that when the group stage is your first game in Toronto? What's the mentality like ahead of that first game?
Well, look, I with our core group of players, I know we're on the right path, right? So clearly, like, priority 1 is to continue to push that group to be at their best. But, even after Copa America, one of the things we realized is as the tournament went on, as fit as we were and strong as we were in the tournament, we got tired, right? And in tournament phase, I think you have to be able to draw on more players, and you have to be able to rotate, right? Especially if you want to go deep in a tournament, because by the time we got to the semifinal, our guys were spent.
Yeah.
I knew going into that match, I said to the staff, like, look, we should probably make 5-6 changes. The guys are done. But that group had earned the right to play in the semifinal against Argentina. What was I going to do? Take out a lot of the important guys that helped get us there? Even when I took Oso out, I didn't feel right about it. But Ishmael, I knew Ishmael would come in and play great, right? So priority number 2, and a strong, maybe it's 1A, is that we have to broaden this player pool. Yeah. So that's why you've seen me do what we're doing in Toronto this week. That's why you've seen me bring in a lot of young players. That's why you've seen me make this about more than just 11 players. Is if we really want to be successful at any phase in this tournament programs, we have to be able to draw on 20 players. So, start with, I think we have 2 goalkeepers that we can count on. We're continuing to figure out which guys in the center of the back can build into, besides just Derek and Moyes. We know that Richie provides good support for Alistair and Fonzie, but we need to continue to build there. We've got good options, I think, in the middle of the midfield. We've got to continue to find strikers and push strikers. Besides just Kyle and Johnny, we've got to continue to find guys in the wide midfield spots. So we've got to keep pushing the group so that we can now make sure that when we get to 2026, we have 26 players that we are absolutely confident to put on the pitch at any given moment for any match. And I told them that at the beginning of Copa America. I said, this is 26 for 26. What does that mean? Fonzie raised his hand and goes, 26 players for 26. That's right.
So do you feel good about that player pool? Trying to project ahead?
I feel like we're expanding it. Guys like Chouanier have emerged, Ali Ahmed. I think Nathan Saliba has done really well to continue to emerge. I think Theo and Tanny, the 2 strikers, are doing more. We're pushing Joel, we're pushing Kamal. We've got Luke de Fougerolles, who unfortunately got hurt. But we're pushing also Jamie Knight-Labelle, Sam Adekugbe. We're continuing to try to push him to integrate into what we're doing with the team. Nico Segur. We've got some other dual nationals that we're talking with and hopeful to secure. In every way, I'm trying to make sure that all the players know that I'm investing in them and looking at them carefully and pushing them every day so that they can have the chance. They have the chance to be part of this.
Jesse, we're running out of time, unfortunately. You got to promise you're going to come back because we wanted to talk about Europe and your career.
I wanted to ask one question. One question before we go. Just one thing. I saw him miss a penalty this week. But you've spoken so glowingly about you've worked with Erling Haaland at such a young age. What sets Erling Haaland apart from the rest of the strikers in world football right now?
I learned very quickly that Erling just when you take his speed, power, you know, his ability to finish in different ways, like right away you put him in the top 1% of footballers in the world. Like this was clear to see right away. But what makes him really different is the enthusiasm he has to enjoy being the best. Like he comes every day, smile on his face, put me in hard training, run my ass, you know, demand more out of me. I'm there for it. And if whatever you give me more, you know, and video, analysis, challenges, weight room, fitness, coming back for regeneration in the afternoon his enthusiasm to just bring it, to be part of the team, to celebrate with his groups, to give penalties to other guys, to share the success with others, to be proud and happy for other people's success, like everything. Total enthusiasm to go for it at all moments, right? That sets him, he's a very, very unique personality.
Good way to finish. It's a great way to finish, Jesse. Thank you so much for coming in. There was a lot we wanted to ask you, but we're going to have to finish up the goal. But thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
And good luck.
Excellent.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.